Hello everyone, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with the next video in our How to Play series on the German destroyer line. This is the Tier 4 V-170, or the V-170. And best as I can tell, this ship was planned, and it was under the January of 1918 mobilization orders. There were 7 of these ships that were ordered. They were laid down, but never completed. Their contracts were canceled due to the World War I armistice and the, sinking of the German Navy in Scapa Flow. And suffice it to say, the only thing I can really find on them is that they were to retain the same exact armament as the preceding destroyers, and we're going to have geared turbines and be slightly heavier in tonnage, about 1,230 long tons or so, which would have made them just a smidge larger than the preceding classes of destroyers, but overwhelmingly not a huge change in terms of overall, layout or anything like that. And with that, because these ships never set sail, we don't have any service history to cover. That means we can dive right on into the in-game playstyle. V-170 is basically a rehash of G-101 in that the ship has the same exact problems. The guns are anemic for a Tier 4 destroyer. They're not particularly effective. They don't have very high rate of fire. The AP is kind of and then we combine it with a not very stealthy destroyer, 6.1 kilometers with camo on. Not exactly terribly long-range torpedoes at 7 kilometers, nor are they fast torpedoes at 54 knots. And we run into basically all the same problems that G101 had, in that we're really stuck in this awkward place where we can't really do a whole lot of damage with our guns, and we're going to rely upon torpedoes, which are kind of 50-50 on whether or not we're actually going to hit somebody outside of ambush ranges. And it can make for a kind of frustrating playstyle. I mean, I had a pretty good game. I had a couple of pretty good games in the ship, so I guess maybe a large portion of that is, offset by the fact that at the lower tiers, players, especially battleship players, tend to not exactly have the WASD hacks down yet, and you can kind of exploit that to a limited extent. That doesn't mean it's necessarily fun. I guess I really don't personally see it as being fun, but the ship is maneuverable, it is fast, it's workable. It's a short enough grind that it's not the end of the world if the ship doesn't, post frequent 170,000 damage games. In fact, at Tier 4, I would be highly shocked if you could pull that off, given the number of carriers and matches at Tier 4. All of the games that I played in this ship involved having 2 carriers per side, which makes destroyer life significantly harder. Alright, let's talk about some stats. She has 10,300 hit points, up to 13 millimeters of armor, which, where? Oh, right there. It's got some belt armor. Nice. And the main battery consists of the same 4-inch or 105 millimeter guns that we've had since Tier 2. 9 kilometer range, 4-second reload time, 18-second 180 degree turn time, 1200 HE shell damage, 5% fire chance, 2300 AP shell damage. No differences in shell velocity. The only interesting things that I can really think of about these guns on this ship anyway are that I think it's this number 2 turret can actually turn 360 degrees, but none of the other ones can. So it's like, hey, we got this 360 degree gun, and that's about it. Anyway, overall, main battery not exactly the most overwhelmingly amazing battery in the game. Torpedoes, 2 single 500mm torpedoes. Those are these ones up here, and this is the last destroyer that has this configuration, so enjoy it while it lasts. and 2 dual 500mm torpedo mounts in the rear. 7-kilometer range, 54 knot speed, 10,600 damage, 1 kilometer detection range on that, so whew, not exactly the healthiest stealth fire window, nor is it the most damaging torpedo in the tier. But you know what, 42 seconds for reload, really not doing too bad. Plus those 2 forward firing torpedoes can be kind of fun to use. AA defense, non-existent. 2 single 20mm flak 38s. In case you're wondering exactly how effective that is, it's not. 6 DPS. 35.5 knot top speed, 500 meter turning circle radius, 2.7 second rudder shift time. So fairly maneuverable, fairly quick. Does get access to a speed boost consumable, which, you know, another 8% boost in speed there for that. Plus we can throw on the speed flag to go even faster. Concealment range by sea of 6.1 kilometers and detection range by aircraft of 2.9 kilometers. Let's talk about some upgrades. In the first slot, I am running Main Armaments Mod 1 for the 20% reduction in the chance of your main battery and torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated, 50% increase in their hit point pool, and 20% reduction in the time it takes to repair them. At this tier, there's not enough AA gun mounts to really worry about taking Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1, so we're just going to skip that one because I don't recommend it. The only other one in this slot that I would recommend is Magazine Mod 1, which is a 70% reduction in the chance of your ship receiving a magazine detonation. If you're out of detonation flags, and that is still a much greater fear to you than having your turrets or your torpedo tubes taken out, I would highly recommend Magazine Mod 1 as a freebie. That one basically takes care of the det flag. In the second slot, I am running Propulsion Systems Mod 1 for the 20% reduction in the chance of your engine becoming incapacitated, as well as a 20% reduction in the time it takes to repair it. The only other one in this slot that I'd recommend for Destroyer Steering Gears Mod 1, which is the same as Propulsion Mod 1, except for your steering gears. And it just kind of depends on which one you would, which one is more palatable for you to lose, which one you're more willing to lose. Now, me personally, with Last Stand, losing my steering isn't nearly as big of a deal as losing propulsion, because that slow rudder shift time is still better than moving along at 10 knots when you're being chased down by an enemy destroyer. So for me, Propulsion Systems Mod 1 is my go-to choice. And with that, we've covered everything we need to cover in port. Let's go look at it in a battle video. Alright, so V-170's playstyle really doesn't change any from G101. It's very much the same, and with that always comes, there's that inevitable discussion about, is this an upgrade or a side grade? Well, I think it's a side grade. We really don't gain much over that ship, and yeah, it is what it is. So anyway, we are here on Archipelago for the map. This is a Tier 3, Tier 4 match, which thankfully the matchmaker for Tier 4 is pretty good about handing out both Tier 5 matches and Tier 3, 4 matches. And so you will frequently end up being top tier, which makes for a very, very fun place. Because you do, especially if you have any destroyer experience at all, you do get the opportunity to kind of seal club with it. But, of course, because it is Tier 4, we are going to see carriers a lot. We have no AA. They are pesky and annoying as all get out. But, hey, you know what? Something that you're going to have to learn to work around, because at the higher tiers, the carriers become way more lethal. And we're going to talk about ways that we can avoid, at these lower tiers, the impacts of carriers in the game. Now, on this map, there's not really a wrong place to go at the beginning except for the B cap. I really don't recommend going to the B cap. Pick A or C and go there, depending on which way you have the most support. In this case, I got a Clemson that's coming up to join me. It looks like we might get a Kuma that's coming up, so we should have pretty good help. So, other tactics, you're going to see some pretty aggressive use of smoke. You're going to see some pretty aggressive use of the guns, because we needed it to, make up for the lack of, the lack of real torpedo hitting capabilities. The only ways, you have a very small window at which you can stealth fire your torpedoes. It's just under a kilometer. It's 0.9 kilometers. And that's really not a whole lot. So to maximize your ability to deal torpedo damage, you got to learn to shoot at targets that are coming towards you or going to enter your range. So aircraft. At these low tiers, they can only auto-drop, which means that if you travel towards them, or you wait for them to come in on their attack run, if you slam on the brakes and turn in, especially while you have speed boost active, there's no way that they're going to hit you with the set of torpedoes. So the first set of torpedoes clearly misses. The second set, they tried to set up a cross drop, and they did pretty good, I'm not going to lie. But it was far too easy to... The way carrier aircraft work at these low tiers is that auto drop, they have to travel in a straight line for a fairly long amount of time before, it really becomes a significant issue. And there you can see I turned in and slowed down. I think had I kept going, he would have just flat out missed. But anyway, back to carrier aircraft. If you slow down and you turn in, they're going to miss. So you wait for them to show that they're in that straight line attack run, and then you just slam on the brakes and turn in. And the chances of them being able to hit you in most ships is pretty small, especially if you start slowing down long before they actually launch the torpedoes. The only way you're actually going to get hit by those torpedoes, especially in a destroyer, is if you're just flat not paying attention. So you can see there we launched a set of torpedoes off at that Tenryu, expecting him to come in, and, we have an Isakaze here that has decided he most likely wants to become a much larger target, and, well, look at that, a magazine detonation. Well, I'd like to think that he was dead regardless, because the torpedoes were well on their way. That one torpedo, I think, was going to pose a pretty significant problem for him. So at this point, we've used our smoke, we've managed to capture the sea cap, and now it's time to launch torpedoes at this Wyoming. And this is kind of what I was talking about with battleships and not mastering WASD. Just something to keep in mind, that Tenryu does have torpedoes. I don't remember what the range is off the top of my head, but we're definitely within the range, so definitely something to be cautious of. You can see here we don't have a whole lot of gun accuracy here, and so as a result we're getting very low damage numbers on the Wyoming. 200 damage or less frequently. Oop, there's a torpedo. So we got ourselves a torpedo hit and a flood. We're going to switch to the Tenryu, but it looks like our other set of torpedoes are pretty good too. There's 3 torpedo hits out of that. No floods there. So we've gotten ourselves 45,265 damage. We've got a short-lived amount of time left here. You can see I switched to AP there for the Tenryu. Tenryu has a pretty soft citadel. I was just trying to see if I could maybe get lucky and get it to eat a citadel hit, but nope, no such luck there. Trying to start this Wyoming on fire while trying to help out our Kuma. See if I can't get over there and help the Kuma deal with this Isakaze, but don't think we're going to get that fire. In fact, we're not really doing any damage at all, and this is excessively frustrating. Like, if it's not a destroyer, we're not going to do any damage to it with these guns. Like, we've reached the point where the 4-inch gun mount only works if we get fires. Well, I managed to get that fire on the Isakaze and not on the ship that I should have gotten it on, which is the Wyoming, who would have burned to death. Ugh. Well, since the Isakaze is here, we're going to turn and engage him. So now we have a perfect example of a destroyer versus destroyer engagement. You can see I brought that one front tube to bear and knew those torpedoes were coming in, so it was just a matter of time before they were found. So we launched one set of torpedoes, and then we're going to launch this other set, basically one set long, one set short, and that's because he was turning away and I expected him to turn back in. Continuing to engage here. Looks like we've launched them pretty good. I don't think he's going to avoid that. Nope. Dev strike number 2. 57,529 damage, 2 kills, 2 dev strikes. And at this point, now we can use the ship's speed to get back into the engagement. From here, you're probably wondering, where would I recommend going? Well, we know that they're Wyoming. Well, we know that the vast majority of their heavy ships are going south. We can see that there's the Hosho there. Don't know where the Langley's at. Oh, he's there too. So the Hosho and Langley are both right there. I think that that's going to be the better option, is to go to the south and either go through the B cap or go south by our Wyomings. And you can see here I'm initially setting up to go south by the Wyomings, but that's going to change. We're going to end up going through the B cap, and that's because there's an enemy destroyer around. I would like to be able to take him out of this fight if I can, because taking destroyers out of these fights means that I can pretty much work uninterrupted. We are very far ahead in terms of points, so that's always a good sign. And so far, you've seen a fairly large number of tactics. I mean, we had 68 shell hits, but the vast majority of our damage is from the 5 torpedo hits that we managed to get. And we'll see that at the end battle screen here. But this is a really good battle. We really got lucky with that Wyoming. We'll just say that. If you end up running up against a battleship captain who knows WASD, the ship can be very frustrating to play because you can't really do any damage to it aside from with torpedoes. So you're going to have to choose, do I YOLO rush him, or do I just try my best to engage him if I can? We didn't really show any coming and going for torpedo launches yet, and how to use how to predict when a ship is going to enter your range as it's coming towards you, so that you can fire from a lot further away than the 7 kilometers would normally allow. And the biggest suggestion I have for that is look very carefully at your mini-map. Set your torpedo range on the mini-map. If you don't know how to do that, press Control, which will bring up your mouse button. There is a gear icon there to the in the upper right-hand corner of the mini-map. Oop, there's another detonation. 2 detonations in one match. What's that all about? Fun and engaging mechanics, that's what. Anyway, select it. So continue to hold the left control. Click on the gear icon. That's going to bring up the options of what gets displayed on your mini-map. Bring up your torpedo range. And look at where your target ship that you want to shoot torpedoes at is going to be. If that ship is it looks like that ship is going to intercept your circle with its path, kind of like the, we look at the St. Louis there. You can kind of see how the St. Louis is going away. He most definitely would not intercept. The Karlsruhe is in range, so it's kind of hard to really use him as an example, but you can see there. Okay, so now he's in the range, but you can see that by the time the torpedoes are going to get where the St. Louis is at, he's going to be back out of the circle. Well, now he's actually turning so that that he's turning into this cap, which means that any shells or any torpedoes that we launch there could possibly hit him. Okay, so what you've seen so far is I laid a smoke screen there for our Kuma and our Tenryu that was back there. I don't know if they really used it effectively. I don't think they really did. But still detected by that vampire who ran off in the other direction. We've got nothing but the St. Louis left. I'm in detection range. It's a St. Louis. That is something to be scared of, but we got the perfect opportunity to go chase after the carrier. Oh, thought those torpedoes were going to hit. Man, that would have been awesome had they hit. Unfortunately, not to be. So we'll go ahead and we'll keep engaging the St. Louis here, and our Kuma went down to the carrier, which means we are going to have to be a much bigger threat to them than we currently are. And you can see they're adding up about 1,000 damage against the cruiser. Looks like the carrier's further to the north than he actually is, but don't fall for that. Definitely use the last known location, because pretty sure that that's a much better indicator of what he's doing and where he's going. Oh, really thought we were going to get close to getting the St. Louis. 61,885 damage, still only 2 kills, 2 dev strikes, no aircraft kills. We've turned our AA on because at this point it really doesn't matter. That St. Louis is dead, I think our Clemson's going to take care of the Vampire. And there's the carrier, launching his torpedo planes. So, trying their best to get some shell hits out on this guy, trying to get him on fire for one. But, 8 shell hits, you know, we're racking up some decent damage with these shell hits. Thinly skinned ships like the Hosho, we can do that. They do have secondaries, so be cognizant of your hit point pool. There we go, now we got ourselves a fire rolling. Gotta be careful with your hit point pool, but once again, same tactics in dealing with carriers apply, but the match ended before I could get the final kill on this carrier. 2 dev strikes, 71,646 damage, 2 kills, a cap, 1,344 base XP, and there's the credits and XP screen. Anyway, V-170 is an alright ship. I really don't enjoy it as much as, you know, like the Clemson is a much better tier 4 destroyer in my opinion. It's a little bit more well-rounded. But overall, you know, the grind on V-170 isn't terrible, so it's not a bad ship overall. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.